The city never really slept, but it did get tired. Around 3 in the morning, even the busiest streets started to yawn. That was Maya's favorite time. She sat by the window of her small apartment, watching the last few cars crawl by below. Another night of waiting. Another night of being no one. Her real name wasn't Maya, but she had been her for so long now that it felt more real than the name her mother gave her. That girl was gone anyway. Buried somewhere under years of pretending to be other people. Maya was what was left. A woman who could walk into any room and become whoever the room needed her to be. A woman who collected secrets like other people collected stamps. The phone on her table buzzed. Not her personal phone, but the cheap burner she used for work. She let it buzz 3 times before picking up. Old habit. Made it seem like she wasn't waiting by the phone, even though she always was. Tomorrow night. The usual place. The voice on the other end was flat, neutral. A man's voice, but one she couldn't place. That was the point. Details. She asked. Tomorrow. The line went dead. Maya put the phone down and stared at her reflection in the dark window. She looked tired. She felt tired. But tired was okay. Tired meant she was still working. Still alive? Still useful? The usual place was a small diner on the edge of the city that never closed. It had been there since the 1950s, and looked like it hadn't been cleaned since then either. The vinyl on the booths was cracked and held together with silver tape. The coffee tasted like hot water that had seen coffee once from a distance. But the owner never asked questions and never remembered faces. That was worth more than good coffee. Maya got there at midnight, ordered black coffee, and took a booth in the back. She wore dark jeans, a plain sweater, and no makeup. The kind of woman you looked at and forgot before you even looked away. She waited 45 minutes before a man slid into the seat across from her. He was older, maybe 60, with the kind of face that had learned long ago to show nothing. His suit was expensive, but boring. Gray, no pattern. The sort of man who paid other people to do the things he couldn't be seen doing himself. "You come recommended," he said. "No, hello, no small talk." "I come expensive," Maya replied. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "Good. Expensive usually means careful." She waited. The game had rules. He would tell her what he wanted. She would decide if the money was enough. Simple. The man reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope, sliding it across the sticky table. Maya didn't touch it. She just looked at it, then back at him. "It's half," he said. "The other half, when you deliver what?" He leaned forward. His breath smelled like mints and old coffee. "There's a man. He runs things on the waterfront. Ships, warehouses, the kind of business that doesn't like attention." "Dante Rossi," Maya said. She kept her voice flat, but her pulse ticked up just slightly. Everyone in her world knew that name. Dante Rossi was the ghost who ran the docks. He had no social media, no interviews, no photographs that anyone could find. He was the kind of powerful that came from being invisible. "That's right, you want me to kill him?" Maya asked. It wasn't what she did, but she needed to know the boundaries of the job. The man actually laughed. A short, dry sound, like paper tearing. "No, I want you to get close to him. Closer than anyone else has ever gotten. I want you to find out what he keeps locked away. The real secrets. The ones that would hurt if they got out. And if he doesn't have any? Every man like him has secrets. They just keep them in different places." The man pushed the envelope an inch closer. "That's your job. Find the place." Maya looked at the envelope. It was thick enough to pay her rent for a year. The other half would be enough to disappear completely if she wanted. Start over somewhere warm. Be someone new again. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you're pretty enough to get his attention, smart enough to keep it, and cold enough to walk away when it's over." He said it like he was describing a car he was thinking of buying. "Also, you don't exist. No family, no social media, no trail. You're perfect. Perfect. That was one word for it. Empty was another. But empty paid the bills." "What's his weakness?" Maya asked. The man shrugged. "That's what you're there to find out. Some say it's art. He collects paintings, spends too much money on them, goes to galleries alone. That's your way in, art consultant. New in town? Looking for wealthy clients. Good. You know the game. Maya reached out and pulled the envelope toward her. She didn't open it, didn't count it. She just slipped it into her bag and stood up. I'll need everything you have on him. Schedules, habits, favorite restaurants, names of people close to him. You'll get it tomorrow. She nodded and turned to leave. At the door, she stopped and looked back. The man was still sitting there watching her. An old man in a gray suit in a dirty diner, pulling strings he would never have to see. One more thing, she said. If I get caught, I don't know you. I never saw your face. This conversation never happened. That's the idea. Maya walked out into the night. The streets were empty. A cold wind was blowing in from the water, carrying the smell of salt and rust and wet concrete. She pulled her jacket tighter and started walking. Not toward home, just walking. Moving helped her think. This was different from her usual jobs. Usually she was hired by companies to test their security or by jealous spouses to find proof of cheating. Safe work, easy money. This was something else entirely. Dante Rossi wasn't just rich. He was dangerous. The kind of dangerous that came from building an empire with your own hands and keeping it. Through sheer force of will, men like that didn't trust Isley. They didn't confide. They didn't fall for pretty faces, no matter what the movies showed. If she was going to get close to him, it would take months, maybe longer. She would have to become someone real, someone he could believe in. She would have to feel things that weren't real and make them feel real anyway. That was the hard part. The part that left marks. She thought about the money in her bag. Enough to disappear. Enough to buy a little house somewhere quiet, somewhere without secrets. But that was a dream for other people. People who hadn't learned that the only person you could really trust was yourself. By the time she got back to her apartment, the sun was starting to think about coming up. The sky in the east was turning a soft gray like old sheets. Maya sat by the window again and watched it lighten. In a few hours, a package would arrive with everything she needed to know about Dante Rossi. His coffee order, his workout schedule, the names of his dead mother and the brother he never spoke about. She would study it all. She would become an expert on a man she had never met. And then she would go out and find him. And she would make him believe that she was exactly what he had been waiting for. That was the job. That was always the job. Maya closed her eyes and leaned her head against the cold glass. Somewhere out there, Dante Rossi was probably sleeping, dreaming, living a life that had nothing to do with her. But soon he wouldn't be able to imagine his life without her in it. That was the strange magic of what she did. She didn't just pretend to be someone. She became them. And for a little while, the Peepshees spent those weeks becoming an expert on a man she'd never met. His schedule was boring, almost sad. Tuesday nights at a jazz club that cost more to join than most people made in a year. Thursday mornings at a small gallery in the old part of town. Sunday afternoons alone on his boat, just sitting in the harbor, not even going anywhere. The file the old man sent was thick with facts but empty of the man himself. Dante Rossi was 47. He owned 3 houses, but only slept in one. He had a brother he hadn't spoken to in 15 years. His mother died when he was young. His father raised him, then died too. There was no mention of a wife. No mention of children. Just a long list of business holdings and a shorter list of personal habits. Maya read it all, memorized it, then read it again. She learned that he always ordered the same drink. That he tipped exactly 18% everywhere he went. That he walked the same route from his office to his car every night, never varying by even a block. A man of routine. That was good and bad. Good because routines were predictable. Bad because a man that careful didn't break his routines for just anyone. The jazz club was called the Low Note. It existed in a basement downtown. With no sign outside and a door that looked like it led to a boiler room. Inside, it was all dark wood and soft lights, and the kind of quiet that came from people who didn't need to talk. Maya paid a lot of money to a man who knew a man to get herself a membership. Then, She paid more money to make sure she got the table closest to the stage on Tuesday nights. The first Tuesday. She sat alone, sipping water with lemon, pretending to listen to the music. She dressed carefully. Simple black dress. No jewelry, except small pearl earrings. Hair down, but not done. The kind of woman who looked like she belonged in a place like this without trying too hard. He came in at 9. She knew it was him before she even looked up. The room changed when he entered. Not in any obvious way. People didn't stare or whisper. They just noticed. Like animals in the forest when a larger predator walks by, Maya kept her eyes on the stage. Let him come to her. That was the plan. He sat 2 tables away, alone. Ordered his usual. Watched the musicians with an attention that seemed almost painful. Like the music was the only thing in the world that mattered right then. She watched him from the corner of her eye. He was taller than she expected. Broad shoulders, but not bulky. It's the kind of body that came from work, not the gym. His face was serious, almost sad, with deep lines around his mouth that suggested he didn't smile much. Dark hair going gray at the temples. Dark eyes that moved constantly, taking everything in. After an hour, she made her move. Simple. She stood, gathered her things, and walked past his table on the way to the door. Just as she passed, she stopped, frowned, took a half step back. "Excuse me," she said. "I'm sorry to bother you." "What? But is that a 1982 Chateau Margaux?" He looked up. "What?" Those dark eyes studied her for a long moment, long enough to make her skin prickle. Then he looked down at the glass in his hand. "It is." She smiled, just a little, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I don't usually interrupt strangers. It's just, my father used to drink that. It's the only wine I ever learned to recognize. He'd be so annoyed that I remembered the wine and not the life lessons he tried to teach me." Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition of a kind of loss she was pretending to understand. "Your father?" "Passed, a few years ago." She looked down at her hands. The lie felt real in her mouth. That was the trick. You had to believe it just for a second to make them believe it too. "I'm sorry, thank you." She looked up again, smiled brighter. "Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Enjoy your evening." She turned to leave. 3 steps. 4. She counted them in her head. Wait. She stopped, turned back. He was standing now. "Wine. A little. My father was obsessive about it. I picked up bits and pieces, enough to embarrass myself in fancy places like this." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Just a flicker. But it was there. "Sit down. Tell me about your father's wine collection." She hesitated, made it look real. "I don't want to interrupt your evening. You're not." She sat. 2 hours later, they were still talking. Not about wine, mostly. About music. About cities they'd visited. About the way the light hit the water at sunset in different parts of the world. He asked questions but didn't push. Listened more than he talked. Watched her. With those dark eyes like he was trying to solve a puzzle, she gave him pieces of a person that didn't exist. A woman who traveled for work, selling art to rich people who didn't really understand it. A woman who was tired of airports and hotel rooms and wanted something real for once. A woman who happened to love jazz and happened to be alone on a Tuesday night. When the club closed at midnight, he walked her to the door. "This was nice," he said. Simple, honest. It was. "Are you here often on Tuesdays?" She smiled. "I might be." "It's a good place to be alone without feeling lonely." He nodded. Something passed between them then. An understanding that felt more real than anything she'd said all night. That was the dangerous part. The moments when the mask slipped and something true slipped through. "Next Tuesday, then," he said. It wasn't a question. Next Tuesday. She walked away without looking back. Got in a cab. Gave an address that wasn't hers. Sat in the dark and let herself breathe for the first time in hours. He was different than she expected. The file made him sound like a monster, a man who controlled the docks with violence and fear. And maybe that was true. Maybe that man existed somewhere underneath, the quiet stranger who talked about music like it was the only thing keeping him alive. But sitting with him, she had felt something she didn't expect. A loneliness that matched her own. A carefulness. That came from being hurt before. He wasn't just a target. He was a person. And that made everything harder. The next Tuesday, he was already there when she arrived. Same table, 2 glasses of wine waiting. "I took a chance," he said as she sat down. "If you don't like red, I'll drink both. Red is perfect." They talked for hours again. At this time, he asked about her work. She was ready with stories about difficult clients and beautiful paintings and the strange world of people who spent millions on art they barely looked at. He listened like every word mattered. At the end of the night, he walked her out again. "Can I see you somewhere else?" he asked. "Not here. Somewhere with daylight." She pretended to think about it. "There's a gallery I've been wanting to visit. A small one. They have a Rothko exhibit starting Thursday. I'll pick you up at 10. She gave him an address. Not a real one. A friend's building that owed her a favor. Close enough that she could walk there Thursday morning and make it look real. He nodded, smiled. That real smile this time, the one that reached his eyes. Thursday, then. She watched him walk away, watched the way he moved through the world like he owned it but didn't care, watched until he disappeared around a corner. Then she went home and sat in the dark, and wondered what the hell she was doing. This was the job. This was always the job. Get close. Earn trust. Find the secrets. But somewhere in the last 2 weeks, the lines had started to blur. When he looked at her with those sad eyes, she felt something. When he talked about his mother dying young, she thought about her own mother, still alive somewhere but as good as dead to her. When he laughed at her stupid jokes, she forgot for a second that none of this was real. Thursday morning, she stood outside the gallery at 10 o'clock. He pulled up in a black car, nothing flashy, and got out to open the door for her himself. No driver, no bodyguards, just him. "You look nice," he said. She did. She had chosen carefully. Simple dress again, but different. Something that said she. Was interested without trying too hard. "Thank you. Clean up okay yourself," he laughed. That sound again? She was starting to crave it. They spent 3 hours in the gallery. He knew more about art than she expected. More than she did, actually. She had studied enough to fake it, but he was the real thing. Talked about Rothko like he knew him personally. About color and emotion and the spaces between. Later, they had lunch at a small place around the corner. He asked about her family. She gave him the story she'd prepared. Parents gone, no siblings, a lonely childhood spent moving from place to place. Gosh, it was close enough to the truth that it almost hurt to tell. "What about you?" she asked. "Any family?" His face closed for just a second, then opened again. "Just me. It's better that way." She didn't push. That was rule 1. Let them come to you. When he dropped her off at her fake address, he sat for a moment with the car still running. "I'd like to see you again," he said. "Not just Tuesdays, not just galleries." More, she looked at him. Really looked at the lines. Around his eyes, at the way his hands held the steering wheel like he was afraid to let go, Maya stopped counting the days. Stopped marking the moments when she was pretending and when she was real. How the lines had blurred so completely that sometimes she woke up in the morning and forgot which name was hers. He called her Alina now. Said it softly, like the word mattered. Like she mattered. They fell into a rhythm that felt almost like a real life. Tuesdays at the jazz club remained their anchor, but the rest of the week filled with other things. Sunday mornings at the farmer's market, walking slow and buying things they didn't need. Thursday afternoons at galleries and museums, always holding hands like teenagers. Late nights at his house, cooking dinner together in a kitchen bigger than her whole apartment. She had been to his house many times now. A modern thing on the hill, all glass and steel, looking down on the city like a king overlooking his kingdom. It should have felt cold, but he had filled it with warmth. Soft rugs, books piled everywhere, art on every wall that actually meant something to him. And the study. She had seen that too. A room at the end of the hall always closed. He never went in there when she was around, never mentioned it. But she knew it was there. Knew the safe was in there. Knew the secrets she was supposed to find were waiting behind that door. She just couldn't bring herself to look. The old man called sometimes. Different burners, different voices, but always the same message. Progress. When can you deliver? We're running out of patience. She gave him scraps. Small things. Business dealings that didn't matter. Names of men who worked for him that anyone could find. Nothing real. Nothing that would hurt. She told herself she was waiting for the right moment, building trust, being careful. But deep down, she knew the truth. She didn't want to find the secrets anymore. She didn't want this to end. One night they sat on his balcony, watching the city lights blink below them. A bottle of wine sat half empty between them. The air was warm, carrying the smell of summer and the distant sound of traffic. "Can I ask you something?" she said. He turned to look at her. In the dim light, his face was all shadows and soft edges. "Anything. Why do you live alone? I mean, you could have anyone you wanted, but you're here. It's with me, and I still don't understand why." He was quiet for a long moment, long enough that she thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he reached for her hand, held it in both of his. "I had someone once," he said. "A long time ago. A wife, a daughter." Maya's heart stopped. There was nothing about this in the file. Nothing at all. What happened? He looked away, out at the city. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Thinner. Like a door opening onto a room that had been locked for years. "My wife, she wasn't built for this life. The danger, the uncertainty. I tried to protect her from it, keep it separate, but you can't. Not really. It seeps into everything." He stopped, took a drink, stared at nothing. "One day she left, took our daughter, said she couldn't do it anymore. I didn't fight it, I thought they'd be safer without me, happier." Maya squeezed his hand, said nothing. Let the silence do its work. They were driving to her mother's house, 3 hours away. A truck drifted over the line on the highway. It was fast. They said they didn't suffer, but how would anyone really know that? The words hung in the air between them, heavy, final. That was 8 years ago. I haven't seen my daughter's face except in photographs since then. I haven't heard her laugh. I don't know what her favorite color is now, or if she still hates broccoli, or if she's even alive in whatever comes after this. A tear slipped down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. "So that's why I live alone. It's because the last time I let myself love someone, they died, and I couldn't protect them. I couldn't do anything except keep living when they couldn't." Maya felt something crack inside her chest, something real, something that had nothing to do with the job. She moved closer, wrapped her arms around him, held on tight. He stiffened at first, surprised. Then his arms came around her too, and he held her like she was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. They stayed like that for a long time. The city hummed below them. The wine sat forgotten. And Maya made a decision that she knew would probably destroy her. She wasn't going to do it. She wasn't going to hurt this man. Whatever secrets he had, whatever the old man wanted, she didn't care. Let them find someone else. Let them do their worst. She was done. That night she stayed. Over. Not in the guest room like before, but in his bed, in his arms, where she woke up to the sunrise painting the room gold in his face. Peaceful in sleep for the first time since she'd known him, she watched him breathe, watched the rise and fall of his chest, watched the way his lips moved slightly, streaming of something she couldn't see, and she knew she had to tell him the truth. All of it, even if it meant losing him, even if it meant going back to being no one. He deserved that much, but not yet. Not today. Today she would just be here. Be Alina. Be the woman who loved him, even if that love was built on a lie. The next week, she started planning her exit from the job. There were ways to do it, ways to disappear from the old man's radar. It would cost money she didn't have and favors she'd rather not owe, but she could do it. She'd have done it before. She just needed time. But time, she was about to learn, was the one thing she didn't have. It happened on a Thursday. They had just come back from a gallery, laughing about something stupid, carrying bags of food they were going to cook together. His house sat quiet on the hill, waiting for them like always. He unlocked the door, stepped inside, stopped. She saw it over his shoulder. The living room was destroyed, cushions slashed, drawers pulled out, books thrown everywhere. And in the center of it all, a single piece of paper, pinned to the coffee table with a knife. He walked toward it slowly, like a man in a dream. Pulled the knife free, read the note. His face went white, then red, then something else, something she couldn't read. "What is it?" she asked. Her voice sounded far away. He turned to look at her. And in his eyes, she saw something she had never seen before. Not anger, not exactly, something worse. Confusion and the beginning of betrayal. "It's for you," he said, and handed her the paper. She read it. It's 5 words, handwritten. Simple, we know. Who you really are. Below it, a single line that made her stomach drop through the floor. "Tell us what's in the safe, or we tell him everything." Maya looked up. He was watching her, waiting. The whole world had shrunk to this moment, this room, this man whose heart she was about to break. "Dante," she started. "I can explain, can you?" His voice was quiet, too quiet. "Who are you, really?" She opened her mouth to lie, to spin something, to save herself, but the words wouldn't come. She was so tired of lying, so tired of being someone else. "My name is Maya," she said, "and I was hired to find your secrets." He didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there holding the knife, looking at her like she was a stranger. "How long?" "From the beginning. The jazz club, the gallery, all of it." He closed his eyes, just for a second. When he opened them, they were wet. "I told you about my daughter," he said. "I told you things I've never told anyone. It was all just ... work. No, not all of it. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Somewhere along the way, it became real. You became real. I was going to tell you. I was going to end it. When? Today? Tomorrow? Soon? I don't know. I was scared." He laughed then, a horrible sound with no humor in it. "You were scared? You?" "The woman who lied to me every single day for 3 months. You were scared. I know how it sounds. Do you?" "Really?" He moved then, walking past her to the door. He opened it, stood to the side. "Get out. Dante, please. Get out of my house. Get out of my life. And if I ever see you again, I can't promise I won't hurt you." She wanted to argue, to explain, to make him understand. But one look at his face told her it was useless. The walls were back up, higher than before. She had built every single one of them. She walked past him, out into the night. Didn't look back. Couldn't at the bottom of the hill. She stopped and turned. His house glowed on the hill, warm and bright and full of everything she had just lost. Somewhere up there, a man was alone with a pain she had made worse. A man who had trusted her with the deepest wound in his soul, and she had handed him a knife and told him where to stick it. The burner phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. Text from a number she didn't recognize. "Good work. The safe is next. Don't fail us again." She stared at the words until the screen went dark. And she threw the phone as far as she could, watching it arc through the night and disappear into the darkness below. It didn't matter. They would find her. They always did. But right now, she didn't care. Right now, all she could see was his face. All she could hear was his voice, telling her about a daughter he would never see again. And she had made it worse. So much worse. The city hummed below her, indifferent to her pain. Somewhere a siren wailed. Somewhere a dog barked. Somewhere life went on like nothing had happened. But for Maya, everything had changed. And there was no going back. Maya told herself it was stupid. Dangerous. She had no right. But she couldn't stop seeing his face. Couldn't stop hearing his voice. Couldn't stop thinking about him alone in that big house with nothing but memories. And the ghost of her betrayal. She went at night. Late. The same way she had watched him before the job started. She found a spot across from his house, tucked into the shadows, and waited. Just to see if he was okay. Just to make sure. Lights were on. He was home. She saw his shadow pass by windows, back and forth like a man pacing. It's like a man who couldn't sleep. She stayed for hours. Left when the sky started to lighten, came back the next night, the next. On the fourth night, she saw something wrong. A car she didn't recognize. Dark, expensive, parked where visitors never parked. Two men in suits standing by the door. Not guards. She knew guards. These were different. These were the kind of men sent to deliver messages. Her heart started pounding, the old man. He had found another way in. She watched as the men went inside. Watched through the windows as shapes moved, talked, argued maybe. Watched as one of the men pointed at Dante, jabbed a finger into his chest, and she watched as Dante, calm as still water, did something with his hand that made both men freeze. A word spoken, a signal given. She couldn't hear, but she could see the result. The men backed up, hands raised slightly. Then they turned and walked out, got in their car and drove away. Dante stood in the doorway, watching them go. Across the street, even in the dark, she could see his face. Hard, cold. The face of a man who had built an empire with his own hands and would burn it down before letting anyone else take control. Then his eyes found her. She should have run. Should have melted back into the shadows like she was trained to do. But she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, could only stand there, frozen, as he walked across the street toward her. He stopped a few feet away, looked at her like she was a ghost. "You're still here," he said, not a question. "I couldn't leave." "Why?" She shook her head. Didn't have words. Didn't have anything except the truth that was too big to fit into sentences. He stood there for a long moment. The streetlight caught his face, showed her the exhaustion underneath. The dark circles, the hollow cheeks. He looked like he hadn't slept since she left. "They came to me," he said. "Your people. They offered me a deal. Give them what they want, and they'd forget about you." Maya's stomach dropped. "What did you tell them?" "Told them to get off my property before I had them removed permanently." A pause. Then I asked who sent them. They didn't want to tell. "Me," I insisted. And now I know who you work for. It's an old man with expensive suits and no name. He runs things from the shadows. He's been trying to take my business for years." Maya nodded, swallowed. "That's him. He said you were his best asset. Said you'd never failed before. Said I should be impressed by how thoroughly you fooled me." She flinched. "Couldn't help it, were you?" he asked. "Fooling me?" "No, yes. I don't know anymore." She ran her hands through her hair, pulled at it. "At first, yes. It was a job. Another job. But then you told me about your daughter, about your wife, and everything changed." "When?" "That night, on the balcony, when you cried, and you held on to me like I was the only thing keeping you from falling apart." She looked at him, let him see her eyes. "Gosh, no one has ever trusted me like that. No one has ever been that real with me. And all I could think was that I was the worst person in the world for being there under false pretenses." He said nothing. "Just watched her. I was going to tell you," she continued. "The next day, the day after. I was planning how to get out of the job, how to make it right. But they found out first. They must have been watching. They always watch. You should have told me from the beginning. I know. If you had come to me, told me everything, I would have helped you, protected you. Instead, I had to find out from a note pinned to my coffee table. I know." He stepped closer, close enough, that she could smell him. That familiar smell she had woken up to for months. Clean soap and something underneath, something that was just him. "Why are you here, Maya? Not Elena. Maya, why are you standing in the dark outside my house?" A breath. Let it out. "Because I love you. Because I've never loved anyone before and I didn't know it could feel like this. Because every second since you told me to leave has been worse than any pain I've ever felt. Because I would rather die than see you hurt, and those men who came. Tonight, they're not going to stop. They're never going to stop. And I can't protect you from out here, but I couldn't stay away either." He stared at her, unreadable. The same face he probably used in business deals and negotiations. In moments when showing nothing was the only way to win. Then his face cracked. Just slightly, just enough. "They're going to come after you now." He said, "You know that, right? You failed them. You're a loose end. They'll want to tie you up. I know. Won't let that happen. I know. He reached out, touched her face. His hand was warm, rough, shaking just a little. I'm still angry, he said. I'm going to be angry for a long time. You lied to me. You used me. You made me feel things that weren't real. They were real. By the end, they were real. I know. That's the only reason you're still standing here. They stood like that for a long moment, to people in the dark, holding on to something broken, trying to figure out if it could be fixed. Then he stepped back, took her hand. Come inside. If work to do. She followed him across the street, up the hill, into the house she thought she'd never see again. It looked different now, not just a target, not just a place with a safe. It looked like home, like somewhere she wanted to stay. He led her to the study, the room that had been closed to her for months. He opened the door, stepped aside, let her enter. She had imagined this moment so many times, the safe, the secrets, the payoff. But standing here now, she didn't care about any of that. It's not what you think, he said. What's in there? It's not money, not ledgers, not anything your boss wants. Then what is it? He walked to the safe, spun the combination, pulled the heavy door open. Inside, there was no cash, no files, just a worn teddy bear with one eye missing. A stack of letters tied with ribbon, small photograph of a little girl laughing on a beach. Maya's hand went to her mouth. She understood now, understood everything. This is all I have left. Of her, he said, this is what they wanted me to give up. This is what they thought they could use against me. She looked at him, at the tears running down his face, at the man who had built an empire to fill a hole that could never be filled. I'm so sorry, she whispered, for everything, for all of it. He nodded, closed the safe, turned to her. I know. Sorry isn't enough. Not yet. We have to fix this. First, both of us. Together. Together, she repeated. The word felt strange in her mouth, foreign, like a language she'd never learned, but she wanted to learn it, wanted to be someone who deserved to say it. Outside, the city hummed on. Somewhere. Out there, the old man was planning his next move. Somewhere out there, danger was coming. But right now, in this room, with this man, Maya felt something she'd never felt before. She felt like she was exactly where she belonged. Maya saw it coming before Dante did, years of surviving by reading people, by sensing danger before it arrived. She woke at 3 a.m. with a feeling in her chest she knew too well. Something was wrong. She reached for Dante in the dark. He was already awake. I feel it too, he said. They're coming. They dressed in silence. No words needed. In the past 3 days, they had planned for this. Every possibility. Every exit. But plans never survived contact with the enemy. Both knew that. From the window, they saw them. 3 cars. Black, no lights. Moving up the hill like wolves approaching prey. How many? Dante asked. At least 10, maybe more. He nodded. It didn't look scared. It looked like a man who had been waiting for this moment his whole life. Stay behind me. I'm not hiding. To her, in the dim light, his face was all sharp angles and determination. This isn't hiding. This is surviving. There's a difference. She wanted to argue, wanted to prove she could fight. But she understood. This was his world, his war. She had only been pretending to live in it. The first crash came from downstairs, front door giving way, then footsteps. Many of them, spreading through the house like water. Dante moved to the hallway. Calm, controlled. He looked back at her once. I love you, he said. Whatever happens tonight, I need you to know that. Before she could answer, he was gone. She heard voices, shouting, then a single gunshot that made her whole body jerk. She pressed herself against the wall, breathing hard, praying to a God she'd never believed in. More shouting. Another shot. Then silence. The silence was worse than the noise. She waited. Counted seconds. Counted heartbeats. When she couldn't wait anymore, she moved. down the hallway, past the study with its closed door. To the top of the stairs, the scene below stopped her cold. Dante stood in the center of the living room, unhurt, unmoving around him. Men lay on the floor, not dead. She could see them breathing, moving slightly. Just ... Don, defeated, and against the far wall, held by two of Dante's men. It's the old man. He looked smaller than she remembered, older, in the harsh light of the living room. He was just a man in an expensive suit, with fear finally showing in his eyes. Dante looked up, saw her on the stairs. "Come down," he said. "You should be part of this." She walked down slowly. Each step felt like a year. When she reached the bottom, she stood beside Dante, faced the man who had hired her. The old man looked at her, spat on the floor. "Traitor," he said, "you were nothing before me. I made you. I gave you purpose. You gave me lies," Maya said. "You gave me a life where I couldn't trust anyone, including myself. That's not purpose. That's prison." Dante moved closer to the old man, close enough that their faces were inches apart. "You came into my home," Dante said quietly, threatened. "The woman I love. You tried to take the last thing I have left of my daughter. Give me one reason I shouldn't end this right now." The old man laughed, a dry, rattling sound. "Because if you kill me, 10 more take my place. You think I work alone? You think I'm the only one who wants what you have? This will never end. Not until you're dead and everything you built is dust." Dante considered this, nodded slowly. "Maybe, but it ends for you tonight." He stepped back, looked at Maya. "What do you think? What should we do with him?" Every eye in the room turned to her. The old man's men still on the floor, Dante's men waiting for orders, the old man himself, fear and hate mixing in his face. She thought about all the years she had spent as his tool, all the lies she had told, all the people she had hurt, all the versions of herself she had buried along the way, and she thought about the safe upstairs, the teddy bear, the letters, the photograph of a little girl who never got to grow up. "He took something from me," she said. "He took my chance to be real, to be human." Dante waited, let him go. Confusion crossed every face in the room. Even the old man looked surprised, but not free. "Let him go knowing that we have everything, every name, every deal, every secret he thought was safe, because I kept copies. I always keep copies. It's the one thing he taught me that was actually useful." The old man's face went pale. He knew what that meant. His whole operation exposed. His enemies would have everything they needed. His allies would abandon him. He would be nothing. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice cracked. Maya smiled. For the first time in years, a real smile. "Am I? You trained me well. You taught me to always have an exit, always have leverage. Did you really think I wouldn't use those lessons on you?" Dante nodded to his men. They released the old man, stumbled, caught himself, stood there shaking. "Get out," Dante said. "Take your people. Go back to whatever hole you crawled out of. And if I ever see your face again, if you ever come near her or anyone I care about, I won't be this generous." The old man looked at Maya. Something passed between them. Respect, maybe, or hatred so deep it looked like respect. "You're more like me than you'll ever admit," he said. Then he walked out. His men struggled to their feet and followed. Soon the house was empty except for Dante, Maya, and the men who had stood with them. Dante's men looked at him for orders. He waved them away. "Clean up outside. Make sure they're really gone. Give us a minute." They nodded and left. The front door closed. Silence settled over the house like snow. Dante turned to Maya, took her face in his hands. "You let him live. Nothing now. That's worse than dead. You're sure about the copies? The secrets?" She shook her head, smiled again. "No, I have nothing. I was bluffing." Stared at her for a second. Then he laughed. A real laugh, deep and warm, the kind she had only heard a few times since they met. "You're incredible," he said. "You know that?" "I'm learning." He kissed her then, long and slow and full of everything they had been through. When they pulled apart, the sun was starting to lighten the sky outside. A new day, a new beginning. What now? She asked. Now we live. Really live. Not hiding, not pretending. Just us. Can we do that? With your business, your life, all of this? He looked around at the room, the broken door, the signs of battle, the home that had been violated. I've spent my whole life building walls, he said, keeping people out, protecting myself. But you got through anyway. You got through, and you saw everything, the good and the bad, and you're still here. I'm still here, and we figure it out together. One day at a time. They walked upstairs together, past the study, past the closed door with its secrets inside, to the bedroom where morning light was starting to creep through the windows. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, looked at her hands. They were the same. Hands that had picked locks and stolen secrets, the same hands that had held his face when he cried. I don't know how to be real, she said. I've spent so long being other people. I don't know who I am when I'm not pretending. Dante sat beside her, took her hands in his. Then we find out together. We try things. We make mistakes. We figure it out as we go. That's what real people do. She leaned against him, felt his warmth, felt his heartbeat under her cheek. Maya, she said quietly. My real name is Maya, not Alina, not any of the others. Just Maya? Maya? He repeated, like he was tasting the word, learning it. Nice to meet you, Maya. I'm Dante. She laughed. A wet laugh, tears starting to fall. Nice to meet you too, for real this time. Outside, the city woke up. Cars started. Moving, people started their days. Life went on like nothing had changed. But inside that house, everything had changed. Two people who had been broken in different ways were trying to put themselves back together. Together, it wouldn't be easy. There would be bad days, days when the past came knocking, days when trust was hard and memories hurt. Looked at each other and saw the people they used to be instead of the people they were becoming. But there would also be good days, days when laughter came easy, days when the weight lifted just enough to breathe, days when love felt like enough. The old man would try to rebuild. Others would come for what Dante had. Danger would always be part of their lives, because they chose to, and that made all the difference. Years later, someone would ask Maya how she ended up where she was. Running a small gallery in the city, married to a man who still made her heart skip, occasionally helping people who needed to disappear from bad situations. She would think about the question, about all the lies and truths that had brought her here. I was paid to seduce a man and steal his secrets, she would say. But the secret I found wasn't in his safe. It was in his heart. As it turned out, it was in mine too. The person asking wouldn't understand that was okay. Some stories weren't meant to be understood. They were meant to be lived.